Okay, this is part 5 of chapter 8, the rape of the mind. In the last video I started and said it was part 3, and I was wrong. That was part 4 of the last video, although I corrected it in the end of the video. So this is part 5 of chapter 8, and this will probably take one more video after this to complete the chapter. Mental blackmail. The concept of brainwashing has already led to some legal implications, and these have led to new facets of imagined crime. Because the reports about communist brainwashing of the prisoners of war in Korea and China were published widely in newspapers, they aroused anxieties among lay people. As mentioned in chapter 3, several schizophrenics and borderline patients seized upon this rather new concept of brainwashing, using it as an explanation for a peculiar kind of delusion that beset them, the delusion of being influenced. Some of these persons had, as it were, the feeling that their minds had been laid open, as if from the outside through radio waves or some other mystic communication. Thoughts are being directed. During recent years, I received several letters from such patients complaining about their feelings of continual brainwashing. The new concept of political mental coercion fitted into their system of delusions. Several lawyers consulted me for information about clients who wanted to sue their imaginary brainwashers. The same concept used above to account for pathological suspicions could be used maliciously to accuse and sue anybody who professionally gave advice to people or tried to influence them. At this very moment, fall of 1955, several court procedures are going on wherein the defendants are being sued for the crime of brainwashing by a third party. They are accused of having advised in their professional capacity someone to do something against the plaintiff's interests. The shyster lawyer is now able to attack subtle human relationships and turn them into a corrupt matter. This is the age-old evil of using empathy not for sympathy but for antipathy and attack. In doing so, the accuser may misuse a man's hesitation to bring these human relationships into the open. The accuser also makes use of the strange situation in the United States that even the innocent winner of a court procedure has to pay the cost of his legal help. Practically, this means that in a difficult judicial question he has to pay at least $30,000 before he can reach the Supreme Court, if it is a Supreme Court case, and appeal to the highest form of justice in our country. Because of this new angle which has developed during the past few years of the brainwashing situation, the psychiatric profession has been made more vulnerable to unreasonable attack. In one case, a third party felt hurt by a psychological treatment that made the patient more independent in an unpleasant commercial situation in which he had formerly been rather submissive. In another case, a doctor was sued because he was able to free his patient from a submissive love affair and an ambiguous promise of marriage. In a third case, the patient during treatment changed from a commercial agency that had treated him badly. In all those cases, the disappointed party could bring suit on the basis of so-called brainwashing and malicious influence. In several cases of this form of blackmail, an expensive settlement was made out of court because the court procedure would have become far more costly. The practicing psychiatrist who was attacked in this way experiences not only financial pressure imposed on him by the dissatisfied party and a malicious lawyer, but in several states the court does not even recognize his professional oath of secrecy. The Hippocratic Oath says, "Whatever, in connection with my professional practice, or in connection with it, I may see or hear in the lives of men, which ought not to be spoken abroad, I will not divulge, as reckoning that all such should be kept secret." Some courts hold that only physical investigation and treatment are valid as medical treatment not to be divulged. Personal conversation, the quintessence of psychiatric treatment, is not looked upon as a medical action. Hiding behind professional secrecy is regarded as contempt of court. An additional difficulty is that this accusation of malpractice by a third party, not by the patient himself, is not covered by the usual malpractice insurance. The importance of such perfidious attack on psychological relationships, however rare the number of cases may be at this moment, is that it opens the road for many other forms of mental blackmail. It means that subtle personal relationships can be attacked and prosecuted in court merely because a third party feels excluded or neglected or financially damaged. I cannot sue my broker because he gave me wrong financial advice, but I can sue a psychological counselor for malpractice because he brainwashed my client. What new possibilities for mental blackmail and sly accusation are open? Gradually we make punishable wrong intention and anticipation, nonconformist advice and guidance, and in the end simple honest human influence and originality, things that are already considered criminal in totalitarian countries. The word blackmail was originally used in the border warfare between England and Scotland. Blackmail was the agreement made by freebooters not to plunder or molest the farmer in exchange for money or cattle. The word comes from the Middle English mail, meaning speech or rent or tax. The French equivalent, chantage, brings us even nearer to the concept of mental coercion. It means forcing the other fellow to sing, to confess things against his will by means of threatening physical punishment or threatening to reveal a secret. It is, in the last analysis, mental coercion. We may call mental blackmail the growing tendency to overstep human reserve and dignity. It is a tendency to misuse the intimate knowledge of what is going on in the crevices of the soul, to injure and embarrass one's fellow man. Mental blackmail starts wherever the presumption of guilt takes the place of the presumption of innocence. The hunting up of dirt and sensation in order to embarrass a victim we see very often carried on by the yellow press. It is not only playing up indecency, but at the same time it undermines human judgment and opinion. And by its sensationalism it precludes and prejudices justice in the courts. What the weak baby accomplishes with its tears and pouting can be done by the whining, querulous accuser with his fantasies about the malicious influence and brainwashing. The suicidal patient may exert the same kind of pressure. I am convinced that in the future the Supreme Court has to make rules which will control these new forms of indictment. Yet the core of the problem is the growing suspicion within man in our era of transition. We blackmail men's minds with too many security measures, with secret files. We blackmail with gossip, with subtle pressures within political pressure groups, with lobbies within lobbies, and even by withholding our friendship. The judge and the jury. What about the people who are called upon to sift truth from falsehood to arrive at just and impartial verdicts? The judge and the jury are themselves influenced and affected by the external facets and inner needs that lie behind the behavior of the other principals in the case. Yet they are supposed to rise above their background, their personal needs and desires, and to render a verdict strictly on the evidence, unswayed by any prejudice or subjective desires. And let us bear in mind that it is not only those officially connected with a case who makes a decision about it. It is everyone who knows about it. You and I, the public, are judge and jury too. Judge and jury face the difficult task of finding and asking on the basis of the facts alone, and yet even in them, under the influence of strong group emotions, and emotional rearrangement of remembered facts may take place. Judges and jurors are affected by the collective emotional atmosphere surrounding controversial issues, and it is difficult for them to maintain their much-needed objectivity. The average juror already submits to the popular emotional demand before the trial is started, as several trials about racial prosecution proved. Lately, two authorities on law attacked the system of trial by jury, one because of its delaying action on the process of justice, and the other because he considered it an outmoded means of administering justice. Trial by jury is a relic of the 13th century, intended to replace the magic trial by ordeal. The gods and coincidence decided the guilt, and to replace a trial by battle Physical skill and power decided which of the two parties was guilty. The trial by jury of peers, by all those who knew the accused and the circumstances of the alleged crime, served its purpose in rather simple, organized communities for a long time. But in our complicated society, where people know less about each other and where a thousandfold communications intrude the mind, things have changed. The average juror is swayed by the emotion and prejudice of his heredity and background training. Our juries are not always able to follow the intricacies of pros and cons of interpretation of facts. In addition, many a trial lawyer knows how to fascinate a jury, how to catch their minds and influence their judgment. Beyond this, the selection of jurors delays more and more the process of justice. And that was part 5, the rape of the mind.